it to win it, never to lose. When we talk about vacation, though, it's always a cruise. It's Tony and Tommy with a TNT schmooze. Cruise talk weekly and we lighten the fuse.
All right, so like this time last week, I was on a weekend cruise, and I've been talking about it in my spots, and people are saying, man, that's insane. I hate going on a weekend cruise. And I kind of had this epiphany, like, I think maybe I'm a super cruiser. I didn't even know there were these designations, but I have kind of formed this framework to talk about categorize people cruising. And Tommy, I think you would be a super cruiser too, but let's set up the conversation like this. The framework goes like this. First time cruiser, that's pretty self-explanatory. You're like on your first cruise, or you've only been on a cruise. Then we got another category called the occasional cruiser. And this is somebody that may cruise every 2 to 5 years. And then a regular cruiser, maybe once or twice a year. The enthusiast cruiser, 3 to 5 times a year. And then the super cruiser, 6+ years. I feel like we got more super cruisers than we used to. Tommy, what do you think? Do you just think of everybody as a super cruiser? I think sometimes we fall in this trap where we're thinking everybody cruises frequently.
No, I think that's a very, very good breakdown, because you do know the people who are like, wow, I'm going on a cruise. I'm going to try a cruise, and they try it once, and then maybe they'll do it when somebody's going on a cruise. Maybe, you always see the T-shirts on the cruises, right? And the celebratory T-shirts where, we're commemorating something. That's a good way to distinguish. The person who made the shirts, that's probably the super cruiser. A lot of people wearing those shirts are probably a little bit more casual. They get the memo. They get the family email. They get the group text. Hey, when are we going? Where are we going this year? Maybe it's, Cancun. Maybe it's, State Park. No, this year it's a cruise. Okay, this year it's a cruise. So I think that's more of like the casual. And then, it ramps all the way up to fellas like me and you, where it's a little bit like oxygen for us.
Do you think there's something like wrong with us mentally or something? Like, how do you think you evolved from a guy who never went on a cruise to somebody who would probably be considered a super cruiser?
I don't think it's something wrong necessarily, because you see all sorts of, and this is what I love about this day and age and the crazy social media, content creation type, niche era that we're in. There's people on, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, talking about the people who have only plane shows, or people who are train enthusiasts, marbles, Lego, all this stuff. So I think it's a find your tribe era. And wrong? No. Normal? Also no.
Dude, you just made me feel like a Swiftie. Like, are we in our cruise era?
Yeah.
Are we in our cruise era? Now we got bad blood. Oh,
and you have the Swifties too. The Swifties too. It just is powerful out there,
Look, I don't think I'm going to be able to get through the rest of the show unless I make this point. I do not believe there is an individual that is more sad. Like, both of us, we love 80s comedy. One of my favorite comedians, Sam Kinison, there was a bit, and he talked about being emasculated, right? Like that when you get married, the wife, he literally talks about being emasculated in the way that you would be emasculated. And there's just this one bit where he's talking to his buddies on the phone. He goes, hey, if you see me out there in the yard doing some yard work or something, do me a favor. Kill me. And then he just goes on a classic Sam rant, scream, that kind of thing. I don't know what the equivalent to that is in today's modern world, but I do believe that if you've ever seen any of these Disney adult families, the guy that is being forced to wear the matching T-shirt, I feel like the sadness in his eyes. I've seen it in so many. Like the wife, she's all glammed up with her ears. She got the T-shirt like I'm a Disney mom. But man, you pan over, and there's just like some dude holding a bunch of bags. I think you get to wear goofy ears if you're a guy, because you don't wear the Mickey ears. And he's got this dead look in his eye, and he's got the dumbest matching T-shirt that's like I'm with her or Disney Dad. I know that matching T-shirts is definitely a thing on cruise ships, and when we have group cruises, we make a matching T-shirt. But I am, because people clamor for it. Hey, can we get a group cruise T-shirt? And I'm like, I don't want us all dressed the same, dag nabbit, but people love it. But man, I feel like Okay, I feel like better. We can get back to the conversation. Sorry for the
All right, but Tony,
sidetrack, but the deadness in a man's, you don't want to see a man dead. We need to be out there hunting and pillaging and not freaking wearing goofy ears and having dead eyes because your shirt matches your wife and she made you, and it's bedazzled on top of that.
Tony's been watching some Andrew Tate videos lately, and that's okay, no problem.
Like the Tate brothers are out on bail, man. Don't group me with those guys.
Listen, so I was gonna find a way to crowbar this in to the show at some point, but I'm gonna say this: orange and blue skies, go New York Knicks. It's been about 50 years now. Where the crowbar works out is because there's T-shirts. All of these teams. I don't know if it's how. I know basketball. They lay these T-shirts out on the chair, on the seats, so that you're supposed to wear, whether it's a whiteout or a blackout or the San Antonio Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs do some sort of a rainbow thing with all the colors. There's 19 colors. It's crazy. The Knicks lay the shirts out too. The New Yorkers don't wear them because of the fact that, kind of like what you just said, they're like, you know what, we come to the, we carefully picked out which era jersey we're gonna wear, whether it's Walt Clyde, whether it's Ewing, whether it's Brunson, and so the T-shirt thing has double ends of the spectrum. But I did want to say that to give a shout out to the Knicks. We're up 0-2. And maybe on their way to the first championship in well over 50 years. So that's big for me right now, Tony. That's big in my life right now. But what I will also say is that the Disney thing, we talked about that recently, and I mentioned it, and a lot of people kind of came at me a little bit because what you say about the Disney guys and being forced to wear, I said the same thing about the holiday in public father male figure pajama wearer as well, Polar Express, what have you. I think they're cousins, Tony. I think it's in the same ilk.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I'm just saying, if you're out there, take a stand. Quit wearing pajamas and matching T-shirts. But put on a stained white T-shirt and regain some of your domain. That's all I'm saying.
Grocery store. The guys I'm in a grocery store. The guy's wearing pajamas, and I have a thing of chicken, and he's looking at me, and he's like, well, would you like to go ahead? I'm like, yeah, you're wearing pajamas. Yeah, I'm going ahead.
Everybody goes ahead. Look, you don't have to be a sports fan to understand the significance of what you're saying about the Knicks being up 2-0, because both of the games that they won, they didn't win in New York. They won in Texas. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal. I mean, everybody talks about home field advantage and all. Like, I feel like that. Like, I feel like, when I cruise out of Florida, I feel a little more emboldened than when I'm somewhere in Texas or in California. I feel like I'm definitely in my element. I feel like I'm winning, if we can quote the immortal, Charlie Sheen. I feel like I'm winning when I cruise out of Florida. But you put me down in New Orleans and I'm fighting off those giant rats and stuff like that, I'm not down with it. But no. The Knickerbockers, they go into Texas, deep into the heart of Texas. They're looking for Pee Wee Herman's bike at the Alamo, and they take 2 games home. And you know who's happy? Spike Lee and Timothée Chalamet. I've seen way too many clips of Timothée Chalamet in the last 4 days on my feed.
Every woman I know who I speak to is horrified and shocked at the fact that that's how I know Timothée Chalamet. That's how I know him.
Have you seen Ben Stiller in these pictures? And why is he jacked? Yeah. Why is Ben Stiller
like
jacked?
Going. Yeah,
Ben's at the gym or something.
Yeah, he's there's a saying, feet on the wood or it's no good. That's how you know you got good seats for basketball games. And Ben Stiller is very often on he's got his feet on the wood. And he's got a lot of photo ops now, and now he's kind of like known as like whatever. It used to be, remember the Lakers? They just had Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And
Jack was the guy, but they're star-studded, man.
Yeah, Tracy Morgan. They got a whole slew of people jumping on the bandwagon.
Let's tie it to cruises. So, we got I think there's 6 new cruise ships still coming out for the last half of this year. And we're definitely going to get back to this cruiser classification. But 6 new cruise ships, and people will pay top dollar to get on a cruise ship, the first sailing, that kind of thing. And I know people are paying a lot of money to go to these basketball games. what would you pay to go to one of these basketball games? Like, it's hard to say, right? Because it's all relative to how much money you're stacking up. But, I'm sure there's people. I saw some people, just some average Joes out there throwing around extravagant numbers to go to these basketball games. And I got to feel I wonder if somebody, like, would you give up a month's worth of salary? Let's say that. Would you give up a 12th of what you make in a year to go to just see a live basketball game where potentially history could be made in a city that you love so much and a team that you love so much? Would you give up a 12th of your income to go to one of those games?
Tony, I'm 51, and there was a time when the answer to that question would be yes. The answer to the question now is not only no, it's I prefer to be in a local bar or on a couch for these games. Have you met people lately, Tony? They're nuts, especially these New Yorkers. I mean, I don't condone it. I'm very, very happy for the Knicks, but they're going nuts. And, whether it's a cruise, I would jump into and I'm an inside cabin guy because I am a subscriber in that theory. I'd love to cruise 4 times in an inside cabin rather than 2 times in a balcony per year. So I'm good with the inside, but I would be much more apt to spend money on a cruise nowadays than the whole process is exhausting. I mean, getting in and out of the place, the traffic, there's going to be a problem. You know what I mean? The police activity, and it's just a mess. So I wouldn't want this game, and it's not even an elimination game. To get in the building, I believe, is nothing less than $10,000.
To be at the top, right? To be in the nosebleeds.
Imagine paying $10,000 to be sitting near the roof. I mean, come on.
That's crazy. I do love New York City though, and some of my favorite images coming out of New York during these first 2 basketball games. And I'm kind of a bandwagon fan. I don't watch sports with any kind of frequency. My favorite sport would be hockey, but I do like the epic clash between people becoming champions. I like the human drama story like that. I like that big guy for San Antonio, Wembanyama or whatever. He's got a cool story, right? And then he choked up. He choked it in the last. I had a great conversation with somebody about what it takes to be great, right? Like you remember, Bird in clutch moments, you remember Jordan in clutch moments, and then Wembanyama had his clutch moment and kind of choked. And will that define his performance going? I love all that human drama of it, but I do love the scenes off the streets of New York. I saw some great picture of just a bodega, and they must have gone to Walmart or something and bought like a 52-inch TV. They had like a folding table out front of the bodega, and they had the game on, and there was like a street full of people on the streets of New York in front of some bodega in some neighborhood somewhere watching the game as a group. And I was like, that's what New York is, man.
Yes.
And, I think it all goes back to your conversation about finding your tribe and finding the thing that you love. And that's certainly the case with cruising. I was trying to figure out, cause like my first cruise experience, like I was like, oh, what's my evolution? How did I become a super cruiser? My first cruise was horrible. And I think it's in chaos where I actually thrive. I went on that Carnival I drove halfway across the country from Charlotte, North Carolina to Mobile, Alabama over a 2-day journey just to get on a 4-day cruise on the Carnival Fantasy, some, ship that was built back in the 1900s, and the thing was broken and we couldn't leave. And, we got an exemption to do a cruise to nowhere, which at the time I didn't even know what that meant. Who knew what the Jones Act was or Passenger Vessel Services Act? And it was not good. And they gave us a bunch of free liquor and took us to Key West, got into a big fight with Jenny. And by the end of that little journey, I had the taste. Like sometimes when you eat something that you don't think you're going to like, and then you got the taste, and then very quickly you're like, oh, I got to do that again. And so, because of that, and, I think they helped us out a little bit becoming super cruisers because of the issues on the Carnival Fantasy, they gave us a future cruise credit worth the value of that cruise, which took us to Cuba later in the year. So we did 2 cruises in 2017, and then the next year we did 4 cruises, and then the year after that we did 6 cruises, and then the year after that we did 1 cruise because of COVID, but then we came back strong. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, not only, obviously I think a big thing for becoming a frequent cruiser is time and money, right? Everything in life is time and money. I think we live in an interesting time right now that you can have a full-time job, but you can still have the flexibility to go on cruises more frequently. And I think that's why I've been trying to think of this in my mind, like the rise of the super cruiser. I think that's part of it. I mean, do you think if we went back 10 years to the early 2000s, like 2007, before remote work and all that, I would love to see the stats on how many people are cruising as frequently as people cruise now.
Yeah. My origin story with cruising is kind of like yours. I was working at this place in New York City, and I had an assistant manager who said he was going on a cruise. I was like, I never thought about going on a cruise. He's like, oh, I'm like, okay, going on a cruise. We had a staff day out, and we were at a local bar that was on the river in New York, and a cruise ship went past, and I was kind of like, just right there, it was like you could have put slow motion on. You could have played music. I was in love with what I saw. And I'm like, you're telling me that thing's going to Puerto Rico right now? We're all freezing cold on the streets of New York City, drinking a Corona on the water with the wind ripping through the Hudson River. And there was a party going on that ship with tropical music and a cruise director. And I was like, they're going to Puerto Rico and they don't have. So I think the people who appreciate cruising like a super cruiser understands the simplicity. On my first cruise, Tony, I did not have a great time, but similarly like you, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was like, oh, I can make a couple of adjustments to this type of thing, and this could be a lifelong passion. And that's exactly what it was.
The wild thing for me, like if you look at the examples we know about cruising, primarily for us, I think the Love Boat, it looks pretty lame. I mean, there was a lot of kind of weird, promiscuous sex on the Love Boat. Like there was always some weird love triangle, that kind of thing. So it was sexy in that aspect. The ladies in the bikinis and the dudes in their short bathing suits, all that stuff. There was there was a sexy aspect to some of the later seasons of the Love Boat, but at its core, it seemed a little boring, right? Like you got the fancy dinner and you're throwing streamers off of it doesn't look like the time that somebody who likes to have a fast time, which I think both of us are like that a little bit, it doesn't look exactly like that. So I love to hear that story where you're saying, okay, you saw it. You were on the banks of of the river there, and you saw people having a party. I think the rise of the internet's also helped that, because for people that always thought that cruising was for old people or that cruising was stuffy or that kind of thing, I think the rise of social media has said, well, look, if there is that, you can certainly find that, and there's definitely a part of the cruising community that wants that Love Boat slightly vanilla experience, but then there's also a good amount of people that want to have a party, right? That want it turned up a little bit, and I think social media has kind of helped us realize that was out there too. So I think that helps it. But have you run into people that have cruised once and never cruised? Do you know any cruise haters in your life?
I know a lot of cruise haters. That's a good question what you just said, though. Somebody who's cruised once and then never cruised again. No, I don't know any of those people, but I did see a TikTok, and like you mentioned, just the World Wide Web and its exposure that it's given to cruising. I saw a guy, and he was like a little one of those cool guy types. I don't want to say New York style. Maybe there's a lot of, I'm going to use the word, the Guido type thing. It's like a lot of attraction has come from like the how you doings and this and that. So a lot of people have run with that. But this is one of those guys. He was kind of suave. He's like, and he gets on there and he goes, something about this cruising, they're not telling us. They're not telling us what's going on these cruises, because you're telling me that you get a bunch of people, thousands of people, you go float out into the middle of the ocean, you go to a port for 6 hours, and then you got to go float back into the ocean, and you do this for 8 days? What's going on? What are they not telling us about these cruises? And the comments were great. There's just, and the most poignant to me one was like the one lady said, it was like, it's the only real true vacation. It's the only time. Think about what you got to do when you're going on a land-based vacation, with the reservations, with the rental car, with the literally pay out of pocket top dollar for everything you want to do. Don't even get started about Disney. Plug and play. When I first started cruising, I was working about 60, 70 hours a week, late hours, responsible for a lot of people's safety, it was wild. And you had to kind of keep a lid on this circus. So it was it consumed my mind all the time, my job. And back then you couldn't get to us. The Wi-Fi wasn't as prevalent. And I just fell in love with it right away, because you get on this ship, you can't do anything about anything. You're gone. You're going. It's a week. You have to trust somebody. And yeah, I was worried the whole time about the place, but I couldn't do anything. You get to cut off, and I think that's, for me, that's the biggest thing. You get on this ship and you're self-contained with a bunch of like-minded people, and you got everything you want to do there, and you don't have to put a lot of thought into it for that week.
Yeah, it's the best, right? So I've been at home, and again, this sounds egregious, but because of what we do for a living, I spend a lot of time on the water. Like I've been on the ocean for over 500 days. I've spent more than a year out at sea, and just on cruise ships. And so when I'm at home for a while, and a while is more than a couple of weeks for me, I get a little itchy, man. I get the itch. Like I like the aspect of where life is just one included decision after another. I mean, you cannot understate the value of being able to do whatever you want for an entire day without having to worry about paying more money. You can pay more money if you want, but the fact is, you're like, even in my life, I could have a house full of food, or but there's always money decisions. If I want to get my car and I want to go somewhere, there's usually a money transaction. You cannot understate the value of being able to wake up and for a 24-hour period not have to make any kind of money decision at all, because you've already made that money decision in advance. I did. Something happened since the last time we spoke. I made up with Carnival. I went on a short 3-day cruise on the Carnival Glory out of Port Canaveral. And this caused some indigestion for some people that had trouble swallowing the fact that I was going back on Carnival, and for the fact that I was going on a 3-day cruise. It's amazing to me how some people cannot comprehend the 3-day cruise. But I tell you what, it did for me what I needed to do. I'd been home for about a month. I'm like, man, I just want to get back out on the ocean. I got a big trip coming up next week. I'll be gone to a foreign country for 9 days over to Ireland. I just wanted to get back out on the ocean, and so. Me, the lovely Jenny B, my brother-in-law, and his girl, we all booked this cruise, very inexpensive. And the very first day, we embark on the cruise over in Port Canaveral, and by 4 p.m., as we've sailed away, I am on the top deck of the Carnival Glory. I'm looking at the little life ring that says Carnival Glory, and right above that's the railing, and right above that's the horizon, and right above that is the sun setting and this big open ocean in front of me, and I'm kicked back on a chair, and the breeze is hitting me. There's 3 other cruise ships that are chasing us out of Port Canaveral, and I'm like, man, this is my happy place. And, what do you do on a weekend cruise? Is that enough? For me, it was certainly enough. I got up, I went to Java Blue, I had the coffee package, I got my included coffee, I watched everybody wake up and walk through the day. I went to the MDR several times, I went to the casino, I went to a show, and by the time that Monday morning came back around, I was satisfied. And, some people, I need a week, I need 10 days. I'm like, well, maybe I'm just built different, but man, it was so nice to be not at home, not cooking, not with all those worries, and just for 3 days doing whatever I want. It was fun. That ship is interesting. It just came out of dry dock. It had a really nice new smoke-free casino. They did it right. They took away one of the teen clubs there on the promenade and moved the teen club away and to a different place on the ship, and it was fantastic, man. I don't know, man. Do you like a weekend cruise?
Yes, and I vouch for your status as a super cruiser, because one of the signs is like just cruising more often than you think. I think that's part of it too, because you're forever saying, like, when we do this show, you're like, oh, we're going to be, doing this show. It's going to be every week, and that's not. Listen, we try to do every week. You can't always do every week. That's what it is. But you say, I got nothing planned for a while, this and that, and then 3 days later, you'll be like, yeah, I had to sneak in a 3-dayer. I had to sneak in a 3-dayer, and that's part of the game, and that's why that's what we love, and that's why I do think, whether it's Carnival Glory or a Margaritaville at Sea, I think there's a place for these types of cruises, and the place is for us. It's not for someone who is, I think the myth of the entry gateway cruise doesn't exist with those things. I think it's for those of us who are seasoned cruisers who can't live without it. And even when life doesn't permit us to go on a 7, 8, 9-day cruise, we get our fix. We get a little, a couple of days out there. And, like I always say, when you're standing against that railing and looking at the horizon and the sun and the sea, the view is the same from Icon. The view is the same from Star. It's a beautiful thing. And when you were, I got the chills when you were just talking about looking at the Carnival Life Preserver and, the deck over the water, over the sky. That's pure cruise bliss. That's why we do it.
Absolutely. The funny thing is, and I don't know if I've ever gone on a 3-day cruise before. The one big marker, I've said this for the longest time. Not everybody's excited about it. I'm excited about it, but cruising is for everyone. And I think Carnival, I'm going to give Carnival their flowers. I think they do a great job of getting more people into cruising. Now, maybe some old Love Boat cruisers, they don't like the fact that everybody gets into cruising, and there could be a lot of, the comments are, a crap show, right? People are racist and people are classist and but if everybody could get off their high horse and get past their own prejudice and their own bigotry and stuff like that, cruising is a great vacation type, and anybody that can pony up the money to get on it should be allowed to do it. And I think Carnival is a great gateway for that. What was wild on this cruise is I went to the welcome show because I love to go to the welcome show that's been unchanged for 7 years. I just want to see how well they do that Bruno Mars song and how well they do that Van Halen song. If you know, you know. At one point they were like, they're like, hey, how many return cruisers are here? And we're like, hey, which it wasn't a very big cheer. And then they're like, how many are first or second time cruisers? And the place exploded. And I was like, okay, maybe this is why people don't like the short cruise, because people are doing it as a sampler. Two weird things happened to me. I talked about it a little bit. I sat in the second row on that welcome show, and the lady in front of me was vaping, which was bizarre. Like the lights were up, the cruise director was standing right there, and she was just puffing big clouds. She ripped a big vape. I was like, that's got to be a first-time cruiser. Like maybe she doesn't know that you're not supposed to vape inside or whatever. And then the second thing where the buffet lines, in contrast to other included food options, every time I went to the buffet, the lines would be wrapped, and you probably know the layout, like of the Glory and those kind of things. They've got buffet lines toward the front, toward the Lido, the pool part of the pool deck, and then they've got another buffet line toward the aft of the ship. And those buffet lines are wrapped all the way. They almost touched each other. And in between those, on one side's the sushi, the other side's the deli. And I just did an experiment because I'm like, I'm not waiting 30 minutes in a buffet line. I just did a walk around during peak times. No line at Guy's Burger, no line at Blue Iguana, no line at the deli, and no line at the Pizza Pirate. And this is just my thinking why. I think all those people didn't necessarily know that there was more included food than the buffet. And so it's like, it makes you think, I kind of wish we could put ourselves back in the shoes of being a first-time cruiser and trying to figure it all out, right? I'd watched enough videos before I got on the Carnival Fantasy that I knew that, Guy's Burger was included there and that there were other food options. But I got the sense that nobody on the Glory that was a first-time cruiser knew that you could get food other than the buffet. MDR was empty every night. I'm like, wow, somebody needs to put a sign up going, and of course it's in the app and it's well documented and all that, but somebody didn't get the memo on there. A lot of people were just standing there like, oh, this must be the only included food I can get. It was wild.
It's true. When I used to cruise frequently, like with people I worked with, they didn't know, they didn't care. They didn't know about a show. They didn't know about whether they just, walked by the seat of their pants to any venue that they wanted. And they kind of but I saw that video and that was interesting. And that's what you don't get on a 3-day cruise. You'll get that on a 5, 7, 8-day cruise. People will start to learn the ship a little bit more. And venues that were not packed on day 1 and 2 would be packed on day 4 or 5. Now, when you don't have a day 4 or 5, it's not going to happen. But I think that's another interesting topic, an interesting question, just the overall culture of different lengths of cruises. Because, I don't know. I don't think I've done a 3. Well, I've done a 2 on Margaritaville.
Yeah.
I don't think I've done a 3 on a major cruise line. I've done a 4, and the 4 to me seems like it was kind of over before it started. That might have to do with the 4-day drink package too. But what was that vibe? Does it feel like this cruise even happened for you? It had to go by fast, right?
It was great. So, I had and we say this a lot, even on a short cruise, you should have a loose plan that you don't force yourself to stick to. But my loose plan, so I don't think I've ever cruised Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it was a true weekend. And the interesting thing is my brother-in-law is a 9 to 5 guy, right? And so he's been on several cruises. I would say he's now a regular cruiser. He goes to 1 or 2 a year, that kind of thing. But he's been on some 7 days, and he loved this as a 9 to 5 guy because he took 0 time off. He was able to pay what he felt like was less than a price per day than a hotel for him and his lady, and then be able to go and eat at the main dining room, go to the casino a little bit, just sit around and talk and hang out and watch people. Those promenade decks on that style and that conquest style of Carnival Cruise, that is the best. If you love watching people, if you love drinking coffee, if you love doing a leisurely thing inside, it's so perfect for that place of board games, that kind of thing. So I think it is different strokes for different folks. Did it even feel like a cruise? Yeah, for me, I probably, the thing I wanted to do was drink coffee, watch people, and play blackjack. And I played a lot of blackjack, and so it was beautiful for me. Like I played the first night. I tested. The thing I broke up with Carnival over was that 3% get chips at the table fee, and I took no money with me. I said, okay, everybody says it's good. The website says it's good. Let me go get over my PTSD about this. I sat down at the table. I threw in my sale and sign cards to give me 300. The guy gave me a piece of paper and gave me chips, no charge, nothing. It was beautiful, and I just started. I just started playing cards. And then the next day we were at Celebration Key, and I had some idea maybe to get off at Celebration Key. I know some bigwigs were showing up on the Celebration, Christine Duffy, John Heald. So maybe I can go get a peek at those guys that we only see on the internet. It was hot, and I was like, you know what? It's been a while. I always try to get out and film something. The other thing that I did is I took it as a true vacation. I didn't on purpose film anything. I didn't make a ship tour. I mean, I always take a little.
We all love that for you, by the way.
It was amazing. It was amazing. And so all I did on that Saturday that we were Celebration Key, the casino was closed. We just hung out. It was great. It was a blast. So for me, it definitely felt like a cruise. It felt exactly like the cruise that I needed. And then the sea day, the casino was open all day, and I just played. It was exactly what I wanted, and it was such a nice break. Maybe it's not going to be the same for everybody. If everybody has different cruise goals of like, I like to do this and I like X amount of days in the spa, or I want to go and spend time at a port, that kind of thing. It definitely wasn't for that, but if you want a quick banger where you can go maybe see a show, have some included food, and get a really inexpensive few days away from the house, it was perfect for that. And people were wild. Let me not sugarcoat it, right? But it seems like it's a party cruise, it's a drinker cruise. Certainly. And if you don't know what that's like in your life, and if you don't know how to navigate that and that kind, I guess that's the fairest thing to say. There are people that are not party people. There are people that are not used to being around people that like to have a good time at that level. There's all kinds of different ways of having a good time. And so if that's not your vibe at all, I don't think you're going to have a good time. But if you are not, if that doesn't mess you up, if you find that to be joyous in life, to see people having a wild time or getting loud or doing, if that is not your vibe, then you're probably not going to have a good time. There's a lot of kids on this one because school's out. You got to know all that going in. But if you're somebody that can roll with all that, it was a fantastic time.
And you were good though. You didn't feel anybody. You didn't nobody. You didn't. Based on the fact that you did kind of break up with Carnival for a while, and you said some things online. Not too bad. Everything fair. Nothing crossed the line. But
yeah.
You know how these big corporations can be sometimes. You didn't catch like Fun Ship Freddy kind of peeking at you around the corner or anything like that, watching this guy, making sure he stays in line and, all that type of thing. You felt safe and not watched?
I don't think the Carnival Illuminati was after me or anything. Again, I feel like with Carnival, I am a persona non grata. Like I think it's easy to just dismiss me and not count me as anything. Now, I don't know if I move the needle, but if I do, I don't think anybody's saying anything about it. And then it always happens on most of these cruise ships. It only takes a few hours before people stop calling me Anthony and they start calling me Tony. So like, or you'll hear a crew member say, instead of calling Jenny Jennifer, so they'll drop a Jenny B. So somehow, some way, we end up on the radar. But everybody was super nice, and I didn't. There was a towel horse head in my bed on the second day.
I was gonna say,
I don't know if that was a message or not, but I just took it as a towel thing. But I did.
Didn't you go by lobster tea at some point? Weren't you lobster
Yeah,
tea?
that was I think during COVID when we were doing you say it, I sing it karaoke or something. I think
Yeah.
that was my gangster name,
I
Lobster
think
T.
they probably had like code words for the lobster has landed. The
That's right.
lobster is approaching deck 8. They probably had little code words with it on their mics, and it's no problems. He seems to be enjoying himself. So we dodged a bullet. Good.
Yep. Yeah. I think. But not to, I'll break my arm trying to pat my own back, but I've always been a advocate for Carnival. I've always been a defender. Certainly, they have their challenges. It's not for everybody. You kind of get what you pay for. I do think it's a good entry level, but I do think I've been fair, right? I've been fairly fair, and I think they've always recognized that. And the people that I do know at Carnival have said that to me, like, oh, I hear what you're saying. You're always fair, and we take it with a grain of salt. So I don't think I'm ever, there's a lot of clickbaity outrage sometimes, and I'm not above doing clickbait stuff, but I feel like my clickbait is always backed by some sort of honest truth, and I think I think I'm always fair with Carnival. So no, it was good to be back. My next the funny thing is you talk about always having something going on. When I get back from Ireland this month, I got nothing planned until November. So let's think about that. Nothing in July, nothing in August, nothing in September, nothing in October, nothing until November. But as you say, that probably won't hold true for very long.
Fills up quick. I get so I'm in my chop shop situation. I'm trying to scale it out, get a bunch of people working so that I can do my next thing in New York, which is going to be a restaurant project up there. But they keep pushing that back. And the more I straighten out the chop shop situation, while they're pushing this thing back because of, grand openings of restaurants, they always something, plumbing, electricity, whatever. I got my eye. I'm looking. I'm looking at some things.
Nice.
I don't think it's going to be an 8-day, but maybe a 4 or 5 day. I could probably sneak in over the course of the next, 8 to 10 days.
Man, that's not 8 to 10 days. That'd be cool. When I get back, though, like we got to try to jump. If you're still in Florida, if you haven't made the move, well, here's two things. I want to hang out with you. If you're still in Florida, when I get back, maybe we can find a shorty to go on and hang out a little bit. But if you do make the move back to New York, I've been threatening to go to Atlantic City forever, and I can't think of anybody else. If we could plan a couple days in the AC, I'd make the journey up there just so I could see what it's like. The only thing I know about Atlantic City is, from Boardwalk Empire. So I'd be up there looking for Nucky Thompson. That was such a good show, man. So okay, we'll land. We'll bring the ship into pier on this one. What kind of cruiser are you? This would be a great time to jump down into the comments on the YouTube video. First time cruiser? Have you only been once? Occasional cruiser? Every 2 to 5 years you take a cruise? Regular cruiser 1 to 2 per year? Enthusiast cruiser 3 to 5 years? Or are you a super cruiser? That's the question we have. And then how'd you get to be that? Did you go from 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds, or were you like one year, 2 another year, and then 10 years in you're like 6 a year, something like that? I'd love to hear that. Tommy, talking about Carnival, big word coming out this week from the man himself. 40 years at Carnival, John Heald. He is the brand ambassador over there. And ever since I've been cruising, since 2017, he's always been the face of Carnival. He's got that Facebook page with over 600,000 followers. So, if you're thinking about cruise influencers with the biggest following, John Heald's certainly one of them. He got on a stage. He was on a cruise with Christine Duffy, the president of Carnival Cruise Line. They released a live video, and he got on stage saying he can't do it the way he's doing it right now, and that the change is in the wind. Did that make you stop? Before we get there, I'm going to sidetrack us. Jenny B bought some steakums the other night and some not even fresh bread, some sort of processed bread. Some Chicago loaf, not Chicago loaves. I don't know, some sort of sub loaf, something like that. I don't know what it was, but she toasted that bread. She put the butter on it and garlic. She toasted it. She cooked up the she cooked up the steakum. She put the provolone on there, a little mayo. She gave me this sandwich like at 9:00 at night, and she said, "Call your friend Tommy and see what he thinks about this." Now, I've had a chop shop sandwich. It's amazing, and no disparaging to my wife. Her sandwich was pretty good, but I thought it was funny that the first thing she thought about is she threw a Philly cheese on a paper plate in front of me while we were getting ready to play our next game of Wingspan. Was call your friend Tommy. Call your friend Tommy.
Still
Okay.
counts.
Back to John Heald. What do you think?
Tony, I don't want to, like you said, you don't want to pat yourself in the back. I have to do this. I have a nickname. You know, there's a one rule about nicknames, right? You can't give yourself a nickname. Someone's got to give it to you. Problem is, I gave myself the nickname Cruise Stradamus.
Cruise Stradamus.
Yeah, and on my show, I've been like, and people have called that. You call that. John Heald was not going to be able to. I said it about probably maybe 6 months ago. John Heald will not be doing what he does, at least in the capacity of what he does it at. It's just too crazy out there. It's too crazy with Carnival at the time, especially when they were putting out their rules and kind of chastising everybody and kind of, getting the pointer out and slapping the desk and then telling everybody how to behave. Well, you could have your opinion, rightfully so in some cases. Sometimes you could argue that maybe they went over the line and got a little too, principle type But I said, with the way Carnival's operating right now between, who likes what's going on, who doesn't like what's going on, the changes, this and that, and just the frustration you could tell that he would make these videos with, and some of the comments, he would cross the line a little bit. He would I was like, John Heald will not be doing this in this capacity for another year. Now, whether or not that's the reason, I don't know. Maybe this was planned for a while. I don't know if one of my listeners finds the show, but I was very, very clear that this is not a surprise to me at all. I did not think he was going to be doing this for much more than a year from when I said that.
Yeah, I didn't expect the announcement, right? So, let's talk about his normal cadence. What we would see is that he would post his 3-minute video, I think almost every day. Maybe he took the weekends off. So on his Facebook page, you would get a 3-minute video, and that sometimes ranged between 5 and 15 minutes. Sometimes it would be, short. And he would address the problems of the day. So he gets this influx of people with complaints and questions, and he's got his finger on the pulse of what's going on in cruising. And he also he spent the last little while taking shots at influencers that he felt like were giving out bad information. And I always appreciated it because it was a well of content. I need to go back in my own catalog. I used to do a bit called Dear John, and so I would go to his page and I would cherry pick some sort of complaint, and then I would put on sappy music and I would read it like a Dear John letter. Dear John, and that was
how did I miss that?
It might have been pre-COVID, right? Like I was always trying to try some goofy stuff. It might have been pre-COVID, but what I found over the last couple of years, it really was a great place to go and understand, at least from a Carnival perspective, what people were upset about, what people were complaining about, what outrageous things. And then on the flip side, you could see from his messaging how Carnival was trying to shape the behaviors and the mindsets of their cruisers. And, it's a weird thing with social media, and, we're as guilty of it too. We love, I don't know if we love it, but we end up influencing people, right? And I don't know if because we know we influence people, we bias, we're biased by that we, now we're saying things because we know we're going to influence our audience, that kind of thing. But certainly I felt like from these corporate standpoints that there would be a message that needed to be delivered to the as many people as possible. Behave. This loyalty program's okay. Don't put your bed on the balcony. And you would find it in this interesting wrapper of this John Heald brand ambassador, fun video, answering a question. And we noticed it, you and I noticed it, that sometimes the stories would come back. Oh, it must be time to make that point again, because, the one that's famous, I don't know how many times we heard somebody asked the Alchemy Bar guy to dinner. I know we heard that story 2 or 3 times. And so I felt like that was a learning lesson. But, tactically, if you look at this guy that's worked for the company for 40 years and he's a celebrity when it comes to Carnival, he says that he answers questions 8 to 9 hours a day. And I tell you what, if I worked somewhere for 40 years and my day consisted of answering internet questions for 8 to 9 hours a day, and they're like, hey, would you like to go back on cruise ships and interface with people, face to face like you used to when you're a cruise director and not answer questions for 8 to 9 hours a day? That would not be that would not be hard for me to go, yeah, I definitely want to do that. But if I keep got to bring the tinfoil hat. If we can go conspiracy theory, the timing of this is so interesting, and I do like the name, Tommy. What'd you call it? Cruise Damas.
Crustradamus
In the fourth quatrain. I do like this because we're getting ready to roll out that new program. The new loyalty program is upon us, and people hate it on the jump. And so, and John doesn't like to talk about it. So I think, interestingly, I always gave Carnival credit for putting somebody front and center to talk about this stuff. And I always wished other cruise lines would do it. And he's still going to have one video a week, and he's going to be answering questions by email, which means somebody else can probably help. Maybe Chat GTP is going to help on the back end. I don't know. That's me speculating. But I do think the conspiracy side of me says, let's get out before this big loyalty change happens. And let's become like every other cruise line where we don't have to be so front and center with it. A lot of people say, why are you always talking about Carnival? Well, because Royal doesn't have a guy out front putting their business on blast. If they did, that would be a gold mine for commentators like us. And so it's interesting that Carnival's kind of exiting that front and center kind of business.
Yeah, and he is still, but he was in that role a good figurehead. It is a unique job, certainly a unique job, and transparency in general from any corporation is not always their strong point. It's kind of a little difficult to dig in and get to the nitty gritty. But you had this guy out there. Now he wouldn't answer every question because I asked him a question at one point in the comments, never got an answer. But I'm not surprised about that because, he allowed himself to be accessed on a regular basis by so many people for so long. It's crazy. It's just not sustainable, I don't think. And there's a reason why, Carnival's the only ones that are doing it, or were doing it. But, I wish him the best. And, I think it's effective the way he did it because he would have to break a lot of bad news, right? But what always kind of takes the edge off is humor, and he definitely has a pretty quick wit. So I was an enjoyer of John Heald. I didn't like some of the things that he would say. I definitely think he, sometimes passed the buck. But again, if you're answering all those questions, I did not like when he shamed me for enjoying chicken wings at post midnight. He kind of put that out there. I'm like, come on, John, what are you telling me you don't like a chicken wing here and there? But it's a tough job. I think he did it just about as well as you could expect somebody to do it. And he did it with humor. He did it with grace. So, kudos to him with whatever role, however that role takes shape next. I wish him the best because he was on those front lines.
I feel like we're eulogizing the man.
Well, he's in a way he is stepping away from a position that was like, of course he's going to be around. You know what I mean? He's going to be there. You're going to see the presence, but he's not going to be doing what he did for all those years.
We got to get Elon on the phone. Maybe they can make a cybernetic John Heald, right? Like RoboCop style, like the mask, and it's not Peter Welkel. It's like, John Heald, like, hey, I got answers for your questions. That's what we need. We need a robot. We need more robot brand ambassadors.
Because Josh Weinstein isn't going to cut it, right? I don't think.
Yeah, no, I echo all of the things that you say, and we wish John well in his new endeavors. He's still going to be all over the company. Again, conspiracy theory. Is this a break? Is this something nice for John, or is this taking away that conduit to the company that's existed so long in the form of the brand ambassador? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. And look, there's people.
I think both those things can be true. I agree with you,
be
Tony.
True at the same time. Yeah.
I got the tinfoil hat on too with you, but still give the guy as you say his flowers.
Yeah, the only, talking about big personalities in the cruising space, one of our favorite personalities that we were sad to see leave is back in the news with a lawsuit, and I'm loving it. I'm loving this story about former Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings Chief Executive Officer Frank Del Rio is now suing Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings and some people that he worked with at the time for lying to him, essentially, is what. Did you get deep into this story? It's fascinating.
A little bit. So one thing we always loved about Frank Del Rio, and when he was advocating for us as cruise fans, one thing you're going to say about Mr. Del Rio is he's a fighter. He's a South Florida, Miami, Cuban, believe he's Cuban fighter, and we love his his enthusiasm, and it looks like he's taken that into retirement. So the situation is he was and we always wonder about this, Tony, right? When a executive leaves, or were they forced out? Or did they retire and go willfully on their own? There's no doubt about this one anymore. Yeah. We know what happened here. So he was asked to step down. And when he stepped down, he was promised, I believe it was a 4-year, several $1 million situation to be on as a consultant. He was told that verbally by the powers that be, board of directors, and then he went to sign the document. Now, this is where I wonder what Mr. Del Rio, with all due respect, what do you want to happen here? It showed in the document that it was only for 2 years. And they said to him, yeah, don't worry about that. We're going to do the 4 years. It's going to be, but sign this now. And by the end of the 2 years, we'll do the other 2 years. We'll have it all in writing. Okay, let me sign the document that says I only get millions of dollars for 2 years. And he signed the document. So I'm sure there'll be discussions. I'm sure something will happen or something will get worked out. But I guess if you're going to go to the letter of the law, it seems like, that's why you have contracts. That's why you have, that's why they tell you don't sign it unless it's the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. What do you think about this one, Tony?
I was shocked reading this story, and then I was shook. Absolutely. So we respect Frank Del Rio as a leader. And it's a wild story. To your point, there was a time post-COVID where there was a lot of pressure, and there still is, on these companies to, reduce their debt and all that kind of stuff. And that guy's got a big compensation package, right? I think he's set to make anywhere between $22 million and $32 million a year. And they're like, well, we don't want to pay that anymore. We'd like for you to leave. And he's like, okay, I'll leave, but I still need to get, $1 million a month or something, or $1 million. I think it's $1 million a month. And he wanted it for, like you said, 4 or 5 years. And they're like, yeah, that sounds good. We'll do that. And to your point, when they gave him the contract, it says, 2.5 years. And he's like, what the heck? As he should. What the heck? And then somehow they Jedi mind tricked the guy into going, no, it's good. We just don't want to write it down. What? Why would you ever agree to it? I hope he's got iPhone footage of somebody saying, I hope he's got something other than no, that's what they told me. Could you imagine if he goes to court and he goes, nah, that's what they told me. There better be an email. There better be an email chain, or because that's not the way, lawyers are writing those contracts, dude. And if they get Frank Del Rio to sign we're only going to get paid. Cause I love the way he's like, I signed the thing for 2.5 years. And then at the end of 2.5 years, I was like, well, where's my money this month? And they're like, what do you mean, where's your money this month? You only get money for 2.5 years. And he's like, but so-and-so who doesn't work here anymore told me this. And I'm like, dude, you are hosed, man. I guess he's hosed. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I am so shocked that somebody of that I love the fact that we got rich people arguing for more money. And I don't begrudge him that, right? If you're making $22 million or you're making $22 and somebody's taking money from you that you think you should get, I think you should try to go get that money. So I don't begrudge him for that. But man, I hope he's got something a little stronger than Bob, who doesn't work here anymore, said he was going to give it to me. Because if that's the case, I don't think he's going to get it.
Yeah, I don't know how these things work. I've my little dealings in the legal world. I do know the discovery and the settlements are a thing, and the arbitration and the side conversations. What you ask for versus what you get. I don't know. I always kind of think nowadays that they'll work something out. He'll get something. Yeah. They'll have an agreement or something. But I have the same feeling that what kind of leg do you have to stand on if you signed a contract for 2.5 years and somebody told you, yeah, he seems, way too smart for that. I didn't know he founded Oceana Cruises.
Yeah, no, that was his. I think that was how his entry to Norwegian Cruise Line Holding. He had that established as a brand, and then I think when they bought it, then he moved into the leadership there at Norwegian. Yeah, it's pretty, and one thing we've always appreciated about Del Rio is the fact that he's very ship forward. So a lot of the design choices and stuff that you see, and like it or not, but on the new Prima class, a lot of that was out of the mind of Frank Del Rio. So yeah, I appreciate that. And then of course the old thing they say, and it will be interesting to see if they settle, like, you know, the people that have the tribal knowledge or essentially know where the bodies are buried, that's also a thing that comes into consideration. Like, you know, yeah, okay, I don't have a contract, but you sure you don't want to give me my money? Because, you know, I might know a thing or two about something. I mean, that's the way the world works on some level.
Yeah.
I think I'd be naive to think that it doesn't,
True.
but it'll be interesting to see if, I mean, obviously that would be part of the public discourse, but there's probably a little bit of that too.
And the other thing is, you know, Frank Del Rio, he was getting up there. I think he was in his, you know, not too old. He's in his late 60s. That's just probably got plenty of life in him. He probably, if I was him, I would go with, you know, I had this offer. I was going to go run this. So I was going to, you had me in a non-compete probably,
Yep.
right?
You know, non-compete.
So you kept me from making wages at other places that I could have easily gotten positions at. And you didn't pay me what you told me you were going to pay me. So I'm sure they'll work something out. They'll have conversations. But yeah, just on the broad strokes of the agreement, it looks like he does not have a leg to stand on. But Tony, what's going on? I feel, and I was thinking about this the other day, like I feel like just Norwegian in general is in this total crucial transition point in their entire, I don't know, is Norwegian going to make it? There's so many different things and strange things and rumblings, whether it's this thing with Frank Del Rio, whether it's, you know, the hostile purchase of a good portion of the stock of the company publicly, severing ties with, you know, who they replace him with. They replaced him with Harry Summer, right? He's gone.
Summer's gone.
Yeah.
David Herrera was the president of the Norwegian brand inside of the holdings group. He's gone. You know, we got the Burger King guy running stuff now.
The back and forth when it comes to policy on, you know, we are casual, we're freestyle, but no, you gotta spruce it up in the dining room. Are they okay?
I don't know if they're okay. I mean, they're the third, you know, they trail along in their cruise stock. They're the third, you know, least expensive cruise stock. You feel like MS, you know, we always talked about the big three being, you know, Royal Caribbean, Carnival Cruise Line, Norwegian. Of course, we got MSC, like, you know, saying, well, actually, you know, if you look at it, we're probably number three, got to move Norwegian out of there. There's a lot of volatility in there. And there's, you know, there's a lot of, you know, we've seen show budgets cut and those kind of things, licensing agreements go away. We've seen people that work at the corporate office get laid off. There's a lot of volatility at Norwegian right now. It would be interesting, and I don't know if it would happen, but it would be interesting to see if somebody would make a play to buy them. Could you see like them getting folded into Royal, or you know, I don't know if the brands are so different, but you know, if you look at the portfolio that Carnival Cruise Line has, they have a bunch of diverse brands that all work independently. That would be a wild play if all of a sudden, you know, Norwegian lived up in the Carnival Corporation umbrella. I don't know. Of course, I don't know what kind of stroke Richard Branson has, but could you see if like Virgin all of a sudden buys them as a, you know, get some sort of deal, or maybe Elon would come and SpaceX that thing. I don't know, but it's a volatile time for Norwegian. I know Norwegian, is that your favorite cruise line, or is Carnival your favorite cruise line?
No, I would probably go Carnival.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, they still have more ships in the run book, that kind of thing, but it's some wild times.
You know what Carnival would do though? They'll buy the Norwegian fleet, and they'll call it freestyle, Carnival style.
Yeah.
You know, they'll put the you know, the funnel. They'll paint the funnel or whatever they'll do. Yeah. They'll make it you know, they'll keep it Norwegian in some way, like they did with Costa or whatever. You know, a lot of the ships. Carnival they've gotten very creative in the way that they try to keep their ship count up. Whether it's P&O Australia or Carnival Parmesan with Costa, yeah. They're creative with that. So I'm sure they'd love to take on all the Norwegian hardware.
Just a quickie. I think I saw a story where the Costa Fortuna actually finally changed ownership over to Margaritaville at Sea. You know, we got Beachcomber coming later this year, and I think the actual transfer of the hardware has happened. So no more Costa Fortuna. It will be going to get the parrot paint on it. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned Virgin. I hope they make it too. You know, you never know what the numbers are with Virgin, and you never know how well they're doing. You know, the only thing you say about Virgin is you know that they have a good amount of inventory that's always available for certain things and things they have to rework. And then, wait, didn't Norwegian? Who canceled a bunch of sailings? Oh yeah, Norwegian. That was the other thing they did, right? They
Really?
canceled a bunch of sailings for the Aqua or the Luna, and they basically
I
turned
think
them
they
into
killed
shorter
Puerto Rico,
cruises.
right? Didn't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't they pulling out of San Juan? I haven't
Yeah.
got deep into that, but I did hear that around the way that, you know, for a while they the Viva, right? Is Viva there? Was Viva in Puerto Rico? I think one of those ships, but yeah, I think they. Well, let me now. I want to look it up, but
Basically,
I believe
what I do know of it, and if you're going to look it up, yeah, absolutely. But what I do know of it is that they basically had all these sailings planned, and they basically blamed the fact that port availability is an issue and this and that. But meanwhile, we're talking about, you know, several months ahead, and it's just them seeing some sort of, you know, conversation in the boardroom must have happened with everybody seeing how profitable the short cruises are, and they just canceled a bunch of sailings. And you know, I think that's the actual one that prompted me to ask the question when I was thinking about it. Like, are they okay? They just seem to be a little bit all over the map, making so many crazy changes. But again, it could also be just a transitional time for them, and that's why I say transitional, because who knows, maybe they make these moves that are a little uncomfortable at first, and then they come out, you know, like a shining star. But I don't know. It just seems like it's like we're gonna see what's gonna happen here in the next few months with Norwegian.
The thing I do want to say about this is like, you know, in large corporations, large organizations, the ability to be agile is sometimes constrained by the size of the organization and the size of the infrastructure. And so I love the fact that it does seem shocking when you see something like this happen, but I like companies that try to be agile. And so really, if they saw the writing on the wall and something didn't make sense to them profitability wise, and they make a big change and it could put them in a different place, I think that is good. But yeah, according to the internet here, I asked, is Viva leaving San Juan? And very quickly it says yes. Viva is pulling from San Juan. They recently announced the cancellation of the 7-month season. So they canceled 7 months worth of cruises, which is wild. They canceled the ones that were running through July the 23rd, 2028, saying port availability, like you said, being redeployed to Port Miami for shorter Bahama getaways. It could be the whole play again to the private island too. Like so much of this play goes to the private island. And, you know, I've seen some pushback from cruisers on that. Oh, this private island, who wants to sanitize cruise experience? Apparently a lot of people are happy with a short cruise to a private island. So it's weird. I think we do see cruising changing. And again, if you can make a quick run from Miami to the Bahamas, save on fuel cost, and get satisfied customers that spend money on your cruise ships, and that makes more sense than port fees in San Juan and everything that goes along with that, I can see them making the change. Is it indicative of problems? Maybe, or is it just smart management, right? Hey, we're not making the money we want to make in, like dropping a sandwich or not making a certain type of video for me. We're not making the money we want to make, so let's make a change, that kind of thing.
Can we stay on private islands for a second?
Yeah.
Because I listen to you a lot. You're very, very influential in my cruising, I guess, content creator life. Another person in that vein is Doug Parker. And I'm listening to you talk about the key versus K thing.
Yes.
And you said you resolved to say, I think I'm going to go with Key. I'm going to respect the Bohemian culture, and I'm going to call it Key in the way that they want it called Key. Now we're talking about Half Moon Key, as you guys say it. Then I turn on my buddy Doug Parker, and he's doing the same thing, and he's saying the whole relax away at Half Moon Key. So I'm saying these two, the big dogs, are all on board with the Key thing. You know what I mean? Maybe I got to come around because I'm a K guy. You know what I mean? I'm a K guy, and I'm thinking maybe I got to come around. Maybe I just got to bite the bullet. Everybody's saying Key, even though they're clearly made to rhyme with their taglines: Perfect Day, Coco K, Relax Away, Half Moon K. But Tony and Doug, the same. So then I'm watching, Doug's video, and all of a sudden, Christine Duffy's out there. basically the CEO of the company saying, "Welcome everybody to relax away at Half Moon Cay."
Yeah.
She says a nice clear K.
Yeah.
Are you still gonna stick with the key? Are we going with key or are we going with K?
So here's my dilemma. And when I went to the inaugural of the Norwegian Luna, they talked about we're going to see the brand new, improved, great Stirrup K. And the thing that's a challenge for me, at least, is a lot of these companies are mispronouncing that word to match their marketing. Right. And they have the full rights to do that. So I guess to be most respectful to the company, you should call Perfect Day a Coco K. You should call it, but I don't remember which ones are which. And so I am just defaulting on the fact that I'm just going to pronounce the word correctly. And if I mess up the marketing, I mess up the marketing. That's kind of got people annoyed a little bit. You know, so I kept saying Perfect Day at Coco Key. And, you know, there's like somebody in my comment, I think their heads exploded or something. It's like, well, look, this is what I'm going to do. Because the problem is when I go down to the Circle Quay in Sydney, Australia, spelled Quay, that's another one that's pronounced key. So that's another nautical word that you'll see. Something will be labeled Quay, which you'd want to call it Quay or K or something like that. That one's also pronounced key. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to call everything key, and I'll take that backlash because I think there's more keys than K's, and I would rather err on the side of volume. I guess the pushback could be, well, dude, learn all of them. But it's like, you know how it is. We talk about so many different things, and we talk about so many different things off the cuff that it's hard. You know, it is funny to me when you know. I think in one of my videos I said, oh yeah, I canceled a bunch of cruises in December of 2026 when I meant 2025, which clearly in the context of what I was saying, you know, I meant December of 2025, but at least 10 comments like, oh, are you a time traveler? Are you a time traveler out there? And I'm like, wow, are you that stupid that you can't do the math and go, obviously in the moment I said that, you know, it's like people are just so excited to maybe catch you being wrong, but it just reveals like you know, the way I think about it is like, are you an idiot? That, you know, obviously like you don't know how to contextualize a conversation. But again, maybe I shouldn't be like that, but that's the way I feel about like, you really waste like your big contribution to the conversation was, oh, it's 2026. Yeah. Oh, it's like, calm down, buddy. Like, you know, but
anytime you're jumping in on semantics, it's just you're showing you're a simpleton. Now, if somebody gets something wrong, and you know, I get guilty of that. When somebody gets a factual thing wrong, I sometimes, and I got to work on that personality wise, where I got to go in and correct the idea.
I'm happy to be wrong and to say, look, I was wrong. But on this weird little stuff, it's like, come on, man. Like you, if you know what I'm, because what I love to say sometimes is somebody will be like, you know, it's you know. Or are you a time traveler? You know, is it December 2026 yet? And I'll say something like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you. No, it's actually 2025. It's not December 2026, and I'm not a time traveler." Oh, right. I wasn't confused. I knew. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you're just a jerk. Is that? I guess we followed this whole thing to its conclusion. You understood what I said, but you still wanted to say something. So it's but if I'm actually wrong about something, I'm happy to be like, oh, you know, I got that wrong, or you know, that kind of thing. One thing I got wrong this past week was that poor story about the guy that went missing on the mountain.
You did? You got it wrong?
Well, I got it wrong in the initial reporting because a lot of the outlets were saying that it was I recorded what I said before I looked at the missing poster, and a lot of people are saying, oh, a cruise passenger, Chinese nationalist, 33-year-old gentleman goes missing on this mountain in St. Kitts. But then when I look at the missing poster, he clearly has a Royal Caribbean employee badge on. Yeah. And so I'd already recorded and put my show up, and then the next day I had to come back and go, I think this guy's an employee. You know, I don't know why people aren't calling him an employee, but he certainly was. That's a sad story. Are we being jerks if we say don't go hiking solo, dangerous places, or should we say just look, I go out on the cruise port all the time. I wander around these cruise ports by myself. Is that the safest thing to do? Or is that just the way life is? Like you decide to go hike on a mountain, and sometimes it doesn't work out. We've had like 3 stories over the last year of this not working out hiking on a mountain. Do you think it's wrong to be like dads and old men going, maybe you shouldn't do that?
No, I don't think you should do that. I've done it and made the mistake a couple of times where, you know, I did it once and then I did it again, and I realized that it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. I don't want to, use the age old buddy system term, because we all like to do what we like to do. If somebody's not necessarily interested in waking up at 8 a.m. and trudging through the mountains on a long, grueling hike, yeah, you'd like to think that you can do that by yourself and come back okay. Problem was, it sounds like this guy, got lost. The eerie part of it is two things. A, that they did have contact with him, and St. Kitts is not that big. You would think that if contact was made, some sort of a rescue would be able to happen, but I don't know the semantics of that. But then also, they're not saying what actually happened. They don't know what actually happened, but we knew he was in trouble. We knew he was lost. And very, very sadly, it is not a happy ending. But to your point and your question, no, we're not being jerks by saying, don't do these types of things solo. Or who am I to tell you not to do them? Do it at your own. Understand the risk associated with it for you and anybody who might have to come looking for you. But I recommend strongly, if you're in an area where you don't know, if you're exploring the unknown, or at least the unknown to you, have somebody with you. It's just always better for it. It's not necessarily that, okay, if you're going to get attacked, you're going to have a better chance with two people. But no, two people is always, if nothing else, Tony, a deterrent for somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? So again, who knows what the semantics of it with him being a crew member and stuff like that. But, wandering off by yourself to go explore the Diamonds International at the port is a different risk profile.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, it's a different risk profile than climbing a mountain by yourself, right? So I think that's the only thing that I would say, and a lot of times excursions are expensive through the cruise line and those kind of things, but I do feel more comfortable when I'm by myself if I want to explore somewhere beyond the cruise port, or at least a cruise port that I'm unfamiliar with. That's my built-in buddy system, is going on a ship excursion. Obviously, I don't know anybody else on the bus or anything, but at least I have that kind of built in. At least you would think the tour operator should be looking after you. I mean, we do have that sad story of the lady that got left behind by the tour operator, but I just think the risk profile, you got to assess the risk, right? Like, you have to have situational awareness. It's definitely a lot less risky to go out and explore like the port area by yourself than go snorkeling by yourself, or take a taxi to a beach and just disappear into the water somewhere just to climb a mountain. It's a sad story, and it is an eerie story. The fact that he was able to make contact at some point and go, "Hey, I'm in trouble," and then them not be able to get to him in time. So definitely condolences there, and a super sad story.
One time I was familiar with Tiano Bay, Dominican Republic, right near Puerto Plata. Okay. I always do some research first, and I see if there's anything cool to do in the areas, if it doesn't necessarily, even if it's not promoted by the cruise line. I saw this mountain. It was almost like a Christ the Redeemer statue that you see in Rio de Janeiro. Yeah. And it was like a little bit of a replica of that. I wanted to go up there. I wanted to get to the top of that mountain. Looks like a simple thing. I checked the geography. When you check geography on Google Maps, it's a whole different thing than what it really is, because you're not taking into consideration the terrain. So I basically, by myself on a solo Norwegian cruise, walked out of the gate of the confines of Tiano Bay and went to a cab driver and said, "Can you take me to the top of that mountain to see that statue?" He says, "I can get you to somebody who will." So then he started walking me to the streets of Puerto Plata, right outside Tiano Bay. And it was I was like, whoa, this is a little strange. Walks down a couple of side streets, approaches a car, knocks on the car window to a guy who was sleeping, who spoke no English. He had a conversation with him. He said to me, "This guy will take you to the top of the mountain, $40. And I'm like, okay. I didn't even think of it.
Yeah.
That was probably not a good decision. So now we're driving through the streets of Puerto Plata, the rustic side of it, say like that. And it was a little wild. It was crazy. And then we start going up this mountain. The car breaks down halfway up the mountain. And it was to the point where I couldn't enjoy it. Not necessarily because, I feel like I fancy myself someone who can handle themselves if there's a problem. But this guy could just drive me off to the side of the road where 8 people are waiting with machetes. It could have happened. You know what I mean? I realized the angst that you feel keeps you from enjoying it, even if there's no problem. So, long story to say, have somebody with you. That's all.
No, I agree. I mean, one time I was in Cozumel and I got into a cab, and it's when I used to carry a big camera rig around, and the guy was taking me, it was just one of those trips where, Cozumel, basically when you leave the cruise port, you turn either right or left onto the main road, and that will take you pretty much anywhere you need to go. This guy went immediately into some back neighborhood that wasn't that main road. And then he starts talking about how nice the camera is. And I'm just like, I think I was just trying to go from the Carnival Cruise Port down to where the Starbucks was or something, the other cruise port. And the conversation got weird. The whole vibe got weird. We were just not on the main street. And I was like, wow, did I just innocently make the worst decision in my life? And to your point, it is unsettling, because you're like, I'm supposed to be enjoying myself, but now I'm worried, and you start working through all of this different math in your head. Like, okay, this is a very popular tourist destination. The crime is low here because they don't want it not to be a popular cruise destination.
Exactly.
So I'm probably being overly paranoid. This guy probably has no ill will. Is something just going through my head because I watched one too many TV shows or something like that? And then when you get out and it wasn't a problem, everything was fine. But it was like, there are some, but it's not to say that weird things can't happen and that there are statistics out there that say every once in a while something goes way sideways. But I think to your point, I think the advice that we would put out there is that just try to mitigate your risk, right? Like do that risk profile. And what I do, if I'm cruising solo, is the thing that I plan on doing, where does that lay on this risk chart? And what's the, I talked about it before. One of the fascinating things, I saw a guy speak at a conference that lived on the International Space Station, astronaut. He lived like the longest person to ever live up there. And he said the one thing that NASA does well is they plan for disaster, where a lot of times when we were in business, we would plan for success. What are the things we need to do to be successful? And he said at NASA, they spend a lot of time planning for what do you do if things are disastrous. And I think that's a good approach to exploring these ports by yourself or even in a small group. What's the worst thing that could happen? And are there any simple things that I'm not saying don't do things, right? Because that's the whole point of getting out and exploring the world. And you shouldn't be afraid of the places that you go to, but what are some ways that you can understand the risk and mitigate those a little bit? And, certainly we don't have a good track record over the last year of people hiking by themselves. I'm sure, that's, I know of 3 cases. There's probably 1 million people that hike by themselves that's fine. But that 3 cases of people, getting lost on a mountain and dying is still like 3 more cases than we hear about somebody, doing something else that millions of people do. So, just got to mitigate the risk.
Mother Nature is undefeated. It is scary, which and we're talking about uneasy feelings on cruise ships. How would you feel if you were in the middle of an ocean and the entire power shut down and the captain got on and just told you, it'll be all right. Don't ask any questions. We're just going to drift for a while. And there's going to be some listing and some rolling. We're just going to be out here drifting.
The thing that's wild to me, and, the wild thing is, Titanic sinks. And a bunch of new regulations are put in place, but Titanic lives in everybody's mind as something. The funny thing to me is Titanic was in 1912. It was really before the modern cruise ship was invented. Of course, Titanic was an ocean liner with the primary function of traveling, taking people from the UK over to the United States and back and forth. But somebody hit me with that the other day, like, Titanic's not even fair to talk about because it wasn't a cruise ship. And I'm like, yeah, no cruise ships existed, but we do think of Titanic in the context of moving people on the ocean. And right. A lot of safety things change that definitely impact cruising. Then we have Costa Concordia, where the guy is showboating and he kills 30 people, and that lives in our minds. And then that's why we really have the modern muster drill. And then, of course, we have the Carnival Triumph. We have the poop cruise. And so it seems like, I saw this story about the Carnival or the Caribbean Princess losing power. And immediately people are like, poop cruise. Anytime something loses power, you get the poop cruise conversation. Now, to answer your question, if we lose power and the captain has some uncertainty as to when power is going to come back and we're floating in the middle of the ocean, Do I think that I'm now going to be stranded for a week? I probably don't think that. But what do you think? I mean, do you worry? Would you how worried would you be if all of a sudden you were that, or how long would it have to go on before you started to be concerned? You know, like 15 minutes in, are you concerned? 2 hours
right
in, are
away.
you concerned?
Immediately.
You're immediately concerned we lose power?
Concerned. I do not like. I know what those engines do. I know the engines are a very, very important part on any cruise ship of navigating your way through the waves. When you're dead in the water, you're at the mercy. You know what I mean? Whatever rolling, whatever wind,
Rogue
whatever.
wave.
Yeah, rogue wave. There's measures you can take as power is working, and I don't know the fancy terms, the nautical terms, but you know, if you're working against those waves, you can take take them at different angles, and kind of like use your engine to get when you are just sitting in the water like that. No, that would be. I'm not saying I'd be running around panicking with my life jacket on, which would be a funny image.
Walking Dead type stuff.
Yeah. But I would be concerned. There would be angst going on. You know what I mean? I would be concerned. And yes, I would be like, you know where my mind goes to with this, and I think about it too. Like they say, if you say this, the secret, you know, whatever you think, if you think something's going to happen, you're drawing it to you. You're bringing the universe towards you in that way. So I shouldn't think about it so much, but I just feel bad for anybody on an elevator during that time. You know what I mean? That's it.
That would be. I have had some elevator paranoia, like a slow elevator, more so than the power being out on a cruise ship. Yeah. Slow elevator freaks me out sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to get stuck on this elevator. Like, why is this elevator slow? I don't want to get stuck. A fun fact though, when the Asiopods or when the engines are running, you're less likely to be attacked by a giant squid. So once the power goes out, you do have giant squid potential. Like the risk goes up higher. The funny thing is, and this is the way I'm wired, my brother-in-law Steve, who just went on the Glory with us, he is scheduled to cruise I think in like less than 10 days on the Caribbean Princess. So out of all the people that I sent the article over about the Caribbean Princess losing power, I sent it to Steve first. And then when we had dinner last night, I was like, did you see it? He goes, I don't care. He goes, anything can happen. I'm like, okay, that's a fresh attitude to have. Yeah. So he goes, you know, if you're worried about stuff like that, you'll never go on a cruise. You know, he said, somebody told me once that all these are outlier events and you can't really. I'm like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. But, Caribbean Princess, some other ship had problems, Royal ship had problems or something like that. You know, the reality is that these are very massive and complex machines that do have redundant systems, but every once in a while, machine's going to break down. So that's the risk you take. The other thing, I'm sure you get this in your comments or in your communities where, thanks for sharing this because, you know, I had never planned on going cruising and now I'm definitely never going cruising. And I love those comments because I'm like, thank God, please don't ever get on a cruise ship because you are not the right person to be on a cruise ship. Do not get on a cruise ship.
My favorite comment of last week was, this was unlistenable to a person who clearly just listened to the whole thing. Was like my funny.
Yeah, that one was funny too because it was I don't know, that the person just seemed angry about something, you know. Yeah, and then he went, you know, it was we love you,
basically calling us dumb. Listen, or calling me dumb. Maybe. Listen. I'll put it like this: if thinking or raising an eyebrow or thinking it's being skeptical and thinking it's wrong for someone to be able to get $5 million because they burned their foot on a hot, I'll stay dumb. Put me on the dumb side. If that's to be skeptical about somebody jumping in and think that Carnival is completely wrong and on the hook for $5 million because the guy burned his footsie on the hot deck. For me, just question if I'm dumb. Yeah, I'm the dumb guy. Yep, absolutely no problem.
Yeah, no, it's you know, we love the comments and just know that you know, nothing happens in a vacuum, so you will be judged. Just so you know, Tommy and I have some interesting conversations behind the scenes. But
no, and even to that person who said that, I'm glad. I sincerely thank you for watching and listening and everything. You know, we're having a back and forth. You come at us, we'll come at you. It's all fun, right? I have no problems with it.
The unlistenable, but listen to the very last minute, it's wild to me. Like I like when somebody, like, I'll make a 10-minute video and like, that's 10 minutes I'll never get back, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't you have quit earlier? Like, Obviously, like, nothing changed at minute 10. It was the same presentation at minute 2. What were you thinking something was going to pop out at the end or something? Hey, it's a whole look, it's Matt Damon. Like, I don't know what they thought was going to happen. I don't know, man. Well, Tommy, what else, man? What else as we wrap up this episode of Cruise Talk Weekly?
Is there another? Let's see. Give me.
Well, there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we got it was the half moon key. It's great that they have a pier now. You know what I mean? You have
two Carnival ships.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. I mean, I love that. Like, that's one of my biggest deterrents sometimes. Even Grand Cayman. I don't even know if it's subconscious or not. Like, I just don't really get off the ship in Grand Cayman anymore because I've never been. What's the word if you're not underwhelmed? Is it whelmed? I've never been whelmed enough to get on those things, which is also a really interesting thing. That's a tinfoil conspiracy thing too. I heard that a lot of reasons why they don't even put the pier up in Grand Cayman is because the union or whatever the powers that be that run those tenders are very, very strong, and they won't make them go away because that's
I talked to a guy, Big Tender's got that place locked down. They don't want the pier. The thing that's the most the whole tender process. Hysterical. Yeah, Big Tender, man. The thing the nice thing, and I don't know if it's still going to be true in the new loyalty program, but at least it's true on Princess, and hopefully it stays true on Carnival. Like, you can get priority tendering service. That may be one of the most important if you're on an itinerary that has a tender port and you have priority tender, you're set. But if you don't, it is one of the most miserable processes, not only for the people trying to get on the tender, but for people waiting, people that aren't even getting off the ship. I remember, I can't remember who I was on. I talked to some cruise director. It must have been a Carnival thing. And I knew the cruise director. And at the end of the day, I was like, if I hear you say another word, you don't have to talk to me for the next 2 days, because that tender process, they're like, all right, we'll be tendering over to Grand Cayman. If you can go to guest services and get your water shuttle ticket, we'll begin calling the water shuttles. And then 5 minutes later, now we're boarding Water Shuttle 1. Water Shuttle 1, if you want to go down to deck 3, that's where the water shuttle will be loading. We are now calling Water Shuttle 1. That goes on for 4 hours. We're now calling Water Shuttle 65. If you have 65, you can now go. And I'm like, for 4 hours, every 5 minutes, I'm like, could you kill me? Is there any better way to do this? It's in your cabin. It's in the public area. And then there's nothing better than like the miserable person. Again, it's some dude whose wife made him wear a matching shirt. And he's like, hey, we got to get up and go get that water shuttle ticket. And she's like, you don't leave the room till I'm ready to leave the room. And, we'll just get whatever tickets there. And then they end up with like ticket 58. And she's just sitting there in her matching shirt. And he's like, how long do we have to sit here? We had an excursion 3 hours ago. Well, water shuttle 12. Call him. Oh, it's the worst, man. Like, it makes you not want to. It makes you not want to book a tender port.
100%. It's one of my favorite things too. When you just talked about that, like overhearing. Some people go on vacations, and depending upon how close they are or how many years they've been together, to eavesdrop on some of the things that couples and family members will say to each other, like when they're arguing over what to do next, is there could be a book written about that. I mean, there's some vile back and forth. I told you it was a stupid idea to go, but you had to go here. You had to book us here. You don't know where we're going. And then when they're arguing, it's this way. No, it's this way. Okay, honey, you go that. And then there's a standoff. One's going to go one way. Are you serious? So one of them has to kind of eventually suck it up. Honey, are you serious? You're really going to, I'm telling you, it's this way. That's one of my favorite parts too, just to
this way is bizarre, right? I love the fact, like, especially if somebody absolutely knows where they're going and the other person doesn't, and then they want to take the lead, they just get, and then that's a funny one. I don't know if you remember when that volcano exploded down in Australia near New Zealand or whatever, and the people got several people died, and then some people got burned. Do you remember that, the island of White?
Yeah.
Yeah, so fantastic documentary about it, fascinating documentary. And there was one newlywed couple on there, and it was the guy's day to pick the excursion. So they were doing there was a story about this recently about the Reddit posts where like my man and I are going on on a cruise, and he wants to go on an excursion every day, but someday I want to go onto the beach, but we have to do everything that he wants to do. And how do I convince him to do something different? And my advice is like, okay, well, why don't you alternate? One day you pick, one day he picks, that kind of thing. And so during this Island of Wight thing, that was the scenario, and the newlywed guy picked going to the volcano, and they both got massively injured. They survived, which is amazing, but they have an incredible amount of burns. But man, for the rest of that guy's marriage, can you imagine?
Yeah,
like he's
not
the guy
winning an
that
argument,
picked.
no.
Yeah, there's never an argument he's going to win. He's like, man, I'm tired. We go to Mexican every Thursday. Can we go eat Italian? She's like, oh yeah, like that time you picked us going to the volcano.
Yeah, that's over. That's finished.
That would be a mess, man. Or I love it on the ship too. Like guys like, hey, I'll be back. I'm just gonna go grab a guy's burger. We eat at 5. It's like, okay, why are you yelling at me? Like I can't eat a burger at 3 o'clock and then go at 5 o'clock.
The burger ain't gonna slow me down.
It's amazing how uptight people get on the ship. It's like, but then there's people that are loose as a goose that maybe should be more uptight. So it's all a balance, I think. It's all about.
I noticed your, the 250 year anniversary of our great nation. I see Carnival stepping up and waving that flag again, right?
That's right, man. America's Cruise Line. They're going to have a flotilla, and they're going to have what do you think about these flotillas? Like for their 50th birthday, like does that excite you to like, okay, we're in the middle of the ocean and look, there's the Carnival celebration.
Yeah, you want what you would like. It's like I'm thinking of a dog park where you let the dogs, maybe kind of interact with each other, and
it's not like they're going to lash these ships up together. They're still going to be a half a mile apart. It's not like you're going to be at Lake Havasu or something like that, or the sandbar down in
No, but it's nice for the ships. It's nice for the ships to get to see each other. They don't ever often get together like that. How often do they get together and have a flotilla like that? You let them enjoy. You do it for the ships.
Do it for the ships. I guess it's neat, right? We're all in one place at one time, and I guess 4th of July is coming up though. Like it is I feel like I haven't heard as much about the 250th as I thought I would. Again, we live in a very political society, so I guess maybe a lot of that's quelling it. But I just remember how
I thought you would be like everywhere. Yeah, if it was a different time and place, I'm sure the bicentennial was a lot crazier, and they were commemorative, this and that.
Yeah.
I think anytime you did you see that oh no, I don't know if we go down this road, but the Black Crows guy, Chris Robinson.
I saw some clip. He got booed off the stage or something, right? For something.
Well, I guess people. I guess a lot of people associate the flag and just USA patriotism right now with something about an administration that they don't agree with, and I guess those two things don't. So, a chant of USA broke out.
Yeah.
And I guess he's not happy with the current administration. So he was just like, very sarcastically, all these people, USA, USA. He goes, thanks for the geography lesson. I didn't know where I was, to something to that effect. And then he just went into like a little bit of a tirade, and then, got booed off stage. But I guess that's what it is. There's just we're in volatile and divided times.
It's crazy. Like again, I'm fairly apolitical, but neither party has neither party has being a patriot locked down, right? I know one party definitely wraps themselves in the flag a little more than the other, but the fact that there is two parties and that there's dissension and there's conversation and there's all these things is because we can all wrap ourselves in the flag. That's the beautiful thing about the freedoms of America. So don't be mad at the flag. I don't know. But and I guess I can't be mad at the foreign flag. The funny thing is we're having a celebration of our birthday with all of our foreign flag ships. Hey, look who's here. Liberia's over here.
Exactly.
Liberia's in the house.
Point. Yeah.
Liberia's in the house. Oh, where are you? Panama, Liberia. We got you all. But look, we all got this thing on the front that says America the Beautiful. So, we got that. We got that veterans bar. Again, that's a little cynical on my part. It's commercializing patriotism to make people feel good, but that's okay. That's what we do. I mean, Carnival's not the only company that does such a thing. So,
yeah. Well, I think we've said a lot.
We've said a lot, man. So I'm expecting you to be on a cruise within 8 to 10 days. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm hoping. So right now, the schedule to go back to New York, to move to New York, is pushed back to. I have up until next Monday, which is probably what is it, the 15th, the 22nd.
Okay.
So this week, I think we're going to do some really good work forward with the Chop Shop. We hired a general manager, and
does he do anything specifically, or is everything just general?
Well, he's gonna kind of be the.
That's one of my favorite Stephen Wright jokes. I went to a general store and they wouldn't let me buy anything specifically.
That's amazing. Him and Mitch Hedberg are great with those one-liners. But no, he'll be in charge of pretty much everything. There's a lot of there's a lot of prep stuff that has to happen because but I think we're going to be in good shape this week for that. And towards the end of this week, maybe I could sneak out for a quick 4-day one.
That'd be cool, dude.
Yeah.
Out of Miami.
Yeah, well, there's options now. Maybe I tie it into my drive up. Maybe because I gotta.
Oh yeah.
So I'm an auto train guy, Tony. I don't know if you know that.
I want to do this. I do know about the auto train. This is a fascinating thing where you load up your vehicle and then you pick it up somewhere. How are you going to get up there though? Or are you going to ride the train up? You're gonna ride the train and your car's going to ride the train.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I have some options. I could do something out of Canaveral because the auto train leaves out of Sanford.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Sanford or no?
Yeah, that's it's near Orlando.
Yeah. So it's right near there. So if that's an option too. Just do something out of Orlando and then get off the ship and right into the my booked auto train. It's a great experience. I like it. They don't get you that close though. I got to get off the train in Virginia.
Oh, really? And then, well, at least you have your car. Yeah, let me do you like the comments would do you. Oh, is there a cruise port in Orlando, Tommy?
You're very, very right to point out.
Landlocked.
I did 100% right. Yeah.
Our friend Don catches that all the time. My friend Don Terrace is always talking about cruises out of Orlando, and his comments are just brutal.
They write Orlando.
I didn't know that there was a cruise port in Orlando.
They write Orlando in the itinerary half the time. So, I think it's fair game. I get it.
The cruise line wants you to understand. People know what Orlando is, right? So, most of the time it says Orlando or, at least in the parentheses or whatever. Yeah.
I would like to spend a day or two up there again. I have a couple of friends in the Orlando area, and we've always talk about getting together, but I'm a fan of the Universal City Walk. Tony, I think, do you ever go to that karaoke spot where you get the live band in the theater?
I've never done karaoke with a live band. That'd be cool. No, I've never done that. That'd be cool.
I strong recommend Universal City Walk, a place called Rising Star. And you go up there and it's not just a live band. You're in a theater. And there's, of course, it's a lot of people who either are practicing or miss their calling or off nights from one of their shows. So it's a lot of, it's a decently high level, but there's also a lot of amateurs there too. But your rendition of The Dance by Garth Brooks would blow the doors off the place.
You think I'd kill it there? Yeah, I have to do that. I know. I wish I could find a karaoke scene. Most of the time I only do karaoke on the ship, but when we lived in Charlotte, there was a great wing place that had really incredible food, but then they also had karaoke, and we went almost every week. So you ended up being with a whole crew, which I think we agree by now that everything in life is better with a crew, right? Whether it's family members or good friends or just people that are like-minded, everything's better with a crew. I had a pretty big music day yesterday. I slowed down a little bit with my consumption of buying new records and stuff like that, just because I was going every week, couple times a week, digging through the bins, that kind of thing. I said, all right, let me let it rest. Let it rest for about a month. And so I went to my local record shop yesterday, and in the $4 or the $5 records, I found that Joe Cocker album that has Help With My... I think the album's called A Little Help With My Friends. That classic Joe Cocker thing. And what I was very excited about is on that record, the thing that made me pick it up is that he performs 2 Bob Dylan songs, which I love anybody covering Bob Dylan songs. So I Shall Be Released, which Dylan did with the band, which was really good. And what was the other one? It doesn't matter, but I was excited to find that. But I've always been looking since I started collecting records for original Beastie Boys records, and I finally got Ill Communication yesterday, which is one of my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was listening last night to a lot of Sabotage and Root Down and all that, and so yeah, I love it when you sometimes like you go too much. It's like cruising. You go too much and you get a little like you get a little overwhelmed with it. Same thing with records. Like, oh, now I'm just buying stuff I would never buy just because I'm at the record store. So it was really nice to take a break and then go back and find the thing. So I guess I'm drawing the line to cruising's like that too. It's sometimes good. That's what I really enjoyed about the 3-day cruise. I'd had a time away from it, and it was really special when I went back. So it was good.
Totally. Did you see that Joe Cocker, the bit John Belushi did?
Belushi was great. Joe Cocker, yeah. I don't know whatever happened to Joe Cocker. Like I think that was. I always heard it was drugs. Like I remember seeing him in the Woodstock film. It's a little before our time, certainly. But I remember watching the Woodstock film, and I watched it with my mom, and she was like, I think I was a teenager. She's like, yeah, the guy had a bad drug problem or something like that. But maybe he had a health issue. I don't know. But the guy definitely could sing his ass off.
Do you have HBO Max?
I do.
Okay, so I saw that the Dylan movie is on there now.
I would recommend it.
That you showed. Yeah?
Yeah, I read the book that was based off of called I think it's called Dylan Goes Unplugged or something like that. It was an interesting time when he transitioned from the folk scene into being a rock and roller, or to being Dylan, if you want to classify it like that. But I think it was pretty accurate to that book, and I think Shalalama Ding Dong did pretty good playing him. And even Dylan, the only thing Dylan said about that movie in a tweet was like, "There's this young kid named Timothy. I'm going to do it in my Dylan voice." And the movie about me, and this young kid Timothy did pretty good, or something like that. That was about all that was said. But I like that guy. He's a the interesting thing is, at least my mom was. I was born in 1971. My mom was 20 at the time. She was a protester. Our uncle, my uncle died in the Vietnam War. Her brother died in the Vietnam War. She was a hippie protester. And when I grew up, I grew up on a lot of acid rock and stuff like that. But I grew up on Dylan. My mom's like, yeah, this guy was our voice or whatever. But then when you get deeper into it, he's essentially just a dude that wants to be famous, and he doesn't make any bones about it. He's a very mysterious enigma. There's a great interview with Ed Bradley on 60 Minutes where he's like, how did you do it? He goes, man, I don't know, man. It's just, he goes, there was just a time where something flowed through me and I was just happy to receive it. And he goes, it's wild being older that the same thing doesn't flow through you. And so and then if you look at all of his interviews and read his interviews, he's obviously very talented and a poet and all those kind of things, and a good musician. But I saw him here in Clearwater. He was like 80 years old, touring his last album. He played for like 2 hours. He never said anything to the crowd. He never got up, but it was really neat to see this guy as an artist. He doesn't play a lot from when he was 19. He plays what he wrote when he was 70 or 80, which I completely respected, because he's like, even Robert Plant, when he talks about why he doesn't play with Zeppelin, he's like, all that stuff I sang about and did when I was 19 or 20, I'm not that person anymore. And, so I like these guys that are, because what we know about wanting to be popular or wanting to get paid or whatever, you do the hits, right? Like people go and see I go on that 80s cruise and you wait the whole hour for somebody to play the hit, like play the song I know. But I like these guys that are able to transcend that and go, nah, this is who I am. This is what I do right now. And people get tired, no respect for Bob Dylan, right? We were in this little amphitheater in Clearwater, and about midway through the show, some dude stands up and he's like, do something we know, and then people are like, shut up,
I'll push back. Wild. I'm a little on the side of those people, honestly. Honestly, Bob Dylan, right? Bob Dylan, you know why we're here, Bob Dylan. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you want to put in some of your new stuff and, you sprinkle it in. Or I went to an Alan Jackson show one time and he said, this is going to be my bluegrass show. Then, going in. This is him putting his bluegrass album in. If I go to watch, Guns N' Roses and they don't play Welcome to the Jungle, I got a bone to pick with Guns N' Roses. But my favorite thing with Dylan was that We Are the World segment. Did you see that segment?
Yeah. Who Stevie
Stevie Wonder. Yeah. So Bob Dylan was amongst these new pop stars, and he really was having a lot of trouble finding his way or finding his space in this song. And I guess the material wasn't agreeing with him. And Stevie Wonder sat down and did a Bob Dylan impersonation as Bob Dylan should do it, which basically gave him the framework for what it was. And I think everybody remembers Bob Dylan on that record because
Yeah.
everybody was so polished and powerful vocals. It is his strength was his message, right? His strength
Yeah.
was his melodies and his message. It was never that he was some crazy vocalist, right? But
The wild thing is like he was really stoned out of his mind on that. Like if you watch that, you could tell he's like gone. And
Yeah.
the thing that fascinates me about Dylan is like if you track the story, I've read a lot of books and I've seen a lot of interviews. Obviously, you probably have to know the man to really know the man, but he seems like somebody who, you know, he wanted to be famous and then he got to be famous and then the fame hit him in a way that he didn't think was going to be. And then he spent just a ton of time trying to unwrap that. And you know, he would change the way that he sounded and he would change the way that he sang. And, you know, and all of a sudden you can't understand what he's saying. Like the wildest thing is he put a Christmas album out a few years ago. That'll blow your mind, that Christmas album. It is the weirdest sounding thing I've ever heard. But hearing Dylan with a late Dylan voice singing "Here Comes Santa Claus," you're like, what convinced you to do this? Like, this is the weirdest thing. But to his credit, though, like he's pretty open about the fact, like, okay, this tour is going to be just for the album "Rough and Rowdy Ways." So if anybody's paying attention, they should know that when they go in there, you're just going to get the songs off of "Rough and Rowdy Ways," and then he usually throws in one old song, right? And you just don't know what that old song is going to be. But yeah, it's wild. I'm very excited. You know, I always had this list. I don't know if you get enamored with celebrity, but I had this list of people that I was going to be sad about when they died, and Dylan's on that list. But two of them, I knew I'd be sad when Stan Lee died, and I knew I'd be sad when the Leonard Cohen died, and those things were both true. And Dylan, I think, is the only one on that list. I'll probably be sad when Willie dies too, just because my dad had such a connection with that music.
You said Willie, right?
Yeah, Willie. Yeah,
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah,
yeah.
I saw him. I was able to see him at Radio City, and he still had some. Because now, if you watch him, he's kind of just talking.
Yeah,
it's almost like what's the band the Four Seasons. Frankie
Valley. Yeah,
those are not.
He looks rough.
I have a problem with the way they put him out there like that. It's probably not. You know, there's a lot of people probably making a lot of money off of that, which doesn't seem right. But who knows? I don't know the whole situation. But Willie Nelson has kind of gotten into that realm a little bit. But Willie's another one, sure.
It is sad. Like, you got to wonder, you know, that's always a question. You know, if we think about, I know we're both, or we have been in the past, fans of Howard Stern. They had big news this week. His sidekick, Robin Quiver, has been fighting cancer for 14 years. And she came out this week and said she was cancer free. So let's throw some positivity in the universe. That's a great report for Robin Quivers. Yeah. But Stern, you sit there and he always bemoans like, I don't like this work schedule or whatever. And you go, okay, well, how much money do you need, right? Like, you don't have to do this. And he continues to do it. But, you know, even like Stan Lee, the comic book guy, at the end of his life, there's clips out there of where he's just really uncomfortable being at these conventions, and there's some guy that has control of him saying, well, you got to do this, like, after you do this, we'll take you home, but you got to do this first. And he's like, kind of confused, like, well, I thought we did everything, like, why do we, and there is that sense, like, who's making Willie go out? Like, does Willie still want to go out, or is somebody manager or something like, look, no, you gotta go make this bag, and man, I kicked myself when I lived in Jackson, Tennessee. When Jenny B and I first got married, I think it's probably around 2003 or 2004. I don't think I was as big of a Dylan fan at the time. I knew a lot of Willie's catalog, but Bob Dylan and Willie came to the small minor league baseball stadium there, and I don't think I had a lot of money at the time. But I wish I'd have went and seen them in that venue, But I was very excited to. There's a few people on the list that I'd love to see, and I was glad I got to see Dylan at that Clearwater thing, like the comedian Andrew Dice Clay. I finally saw him in life, which I thought was cool. So, I saw Kennison before he died.
I gotta get involved with Dylan's catalog. I don't know. I know Complete Unknown. I know that one.
Yeah.
I know. I'm trying to think. What do I even know? I may Spotify Dylan a little bit more.
It's
I just
vast,
know
man.
that.
There's a great bootleg album called the Rolling Thunder Review. My favorite Dylan, I think that's in '78. He's like early 30s, mid 30s, and a lot's gone on in his life. But that's a really great bootleg. I'll send you a link to it or something. But that's pretty good. But then his older stuff's interesting, like that huge Adele song, "Make You Feel My Love" or whatever. You know that song? I don't know. He wrote that song. He's written so many amazing songs. It's but like on this Rough and Rowdy Ways that he's touring, it's weird. I mean, he's just got some weird songs. Like "I'm a Man of Multitudes." I would recommend that song. But he has a great song about Key West, which I think you would like. He talks about Key West being a great place to go and visit, and it's pretty good.
Are you a Buffett guy?
Not really. Like I know, the beach is not my vibe.
I will say that's like that's my friend Hal, who's obsessed with country music. I always thought Jimmy Buffett was Margaritaville, Cheeseburger in Paradise, boat drinks, and he is all those things. But my friend Hal says you don't understand Buffett. Like you don't even get it. Like because Kenny Chesney is a little Buffety, and they kind of get linked together with Zach Brown, Jimmy Buffett, Kenny Chesney for having that saltwater country kind of vibe, that island vibe. But Buffett, when you look into a song like Banana Republic or some other ones, it's like Hemingway. The writing he does in some of these songs, and it's all about, like, he talks about the crazy side of going down to the islands and stuff, or moving and transplanting, and how, like, listen to Banana. Have you ever heard that song Banana Republic?
I don't know if I've heard it. I've never really gotten deep into the catalog. I never got past the hits, but the cool thing with the services we have, we probably could. Yeah, I never really have.
It's poetry. He's a real poet. Nautical Wheelers. Basically about a group of people who kind of live in 3/4 time. It's like living and dying in 3/4 time, and in 3/4 time is like a musical 1 2 3 1 2 3 instead of boom boom boom. And it's like a symbolism for, like, they only live 3/4 lives because they live such a rough life. So the living and dying, it's he's got so many layers of depth to him that I had no idea until my friend actually pointed it out.
Now I'm tempted to go down the rabbit hole. The other thing, a few years ago, I read that book, Atomic Habits, and you hear about it. I think you know that book too. Yeah. They talk about building, situations that are frictionless. But the other thing that I like in that book is, instead of saying, "Hey, I want to lose weight," or instead of "I want to read more," you just kind of position yourself as somebody who does that thing. I am a healthy person. I am someone who reads. So I've kind of taken that attitude when it comes to reading, and I have started reading Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea, which is essentially a Cuban story, which is very fascinating. But all these guys, so like in the book influencer area, BookTube, Book Talk, they call June on the range, and this is the time that you're supposed to add some sort of Western reading to your whole reading thing. So I started reading the big epic 800-page Lonesome Dove. Right, like this is a work that's well regarded as a Western. Of course, it was a Robert Duvall, Tommy Lee Jones miniseries, maybe back in the 90s or 80s or something like that. I'm about 100 pages into it in the last 3 days. It's really good.
What's it called?
Lonesome Dove. And I didn't think I would like to read a Western. That's not normally what I read. I put it on my Kindle, and of course, and I'm like this too. I want to watch that miniseries now, but now I'm committed to, like, I'm going to read the 800 pages so that I can take that context into watching the miniseries. But I didn't think it would be good. Like, I just, like you see all those old paperback Western novels, Louis L'Amour, stuff like that your grandpa read or something. Like, I'm not reading that crap. But this Lonesome Dove, so many of these people are like, this is an amazing seminal, this is a great American novel. I'm like, nah. But 6 chapters in, I'm in, man. I'm cooked. I'm like, it's such a really fascinating story. But it basically surrounds these two guys. One's a real outgoing kind of guy, and the other guy's a stoic, and they're both former Texas Rangers who had taken care of themselves during wars with the Indians or whatever. And now they run a cattle business at this place called Lonesome Dove. And now they're starting to string together all of these variety of characters around them. The saloon's got a prostitute and a piano player, and they all play a role. And, all these cowboys are in love with the prostitute and how she got to be there. And I don't even know why it's good, but I just found myself like, okay, I can't put this thing down. So Lonesome Dove.
And you're saying it was a mini series, huh?
It was a mini series with Duvall
Oh,
playing.
can we bring back the mini series? Come on.
Yeah. Duvall's in it. A lot of Tommy Lee Jones plays the stoic guy, and I remember it getting critical acclaim. I think I was probably a punky teenager when it came out, and I was like, well, let me see when that miniseries came out. But I think something my dad would have liked that I'm like, I'm not watching that crap. Lonesome Dove miniseries.
Reminds me of Deadwood. Ever watch Deadwood on HBO?
Yeah, I love Deadwood. I thought Deadwood was amazing.
Deadwood too. Yep.
Oh, I ended up typing Lonesome Ministries. That's not the Google search I wanted. Lonesome Dove Miniseries. When did that come out? But I just love the fact, I love content creation. I love the fact that there's a thing called June on the Range. 1989, so I was a senior in high school. So I was 18. Yeah, so I definitely wouldn't have been watching Lonesome Dove back then. Duvall looking svelte, though, looking like a skinny dude. Yeah. I think of Duvall, I think of Duvall in two ways. I obviously think of Duvall as consigliere in The Godfather. Yeah, Tom Hayden. And then but then I think of older kind of big belly Duvall. I don't know what role, like in Days of Thunder or something like that.
Days of Thunder, he was great.
Yeah, he was so good in that. So those are my two. But yeah, so it's interesting. I just looked at the picture here of him as Augustus McCrae, I think's his name. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Speaking of books, you read The Godfather or no?
I never read The Godfather.
That's a good one.
It's a good read. Yeah, I need to do it.
Really?
The wild thing is once you start reading, you realize it takes time to read a book, and then there's so many books. Like it's one of the I'm a collector at heart, and so I really have to fight myself. Like, okay, I'm going to go to the Goodwill. I'm going to get 50 books that I'll never read. Then I'll have those on shelves that I never read. I've done that recently, where I finally. It's so funny. I've been using the AI lately to try to help order my brain a little bit because my brain's all over the place. And I said, hey, I want to be a reader, right? I want to position myself as a reader. I find value in that. I think it helps my creativity. Let me get a drink here. But then I struggle to carry books around, and what do I do? And the thing finally, like just read on your Kindle, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the resources we have. Just something simple like that. You can find that out just by typing it in, and like the way you said that. Because I'm scattered all over the place as well. But when you can go in and have something that's going to organize your thoughts like that and help you kind of prioritize, or just give you some of the simplest advice, almost like that you already knew. You know what I mean? But sometimes it kind of just confirms it. If anything.
I don't even know why the AI works, right? So essentially, it's a supercomputer that has all kinds of data, but somehow it can talk to you. It's like it's very weird, But and it's supposed to. I mean, that's what it's programmed to do, is to kind of be pleasant towards you. But I do love that. The advice is good sometimes. The advice is good.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've talked about a lot, and so I leave for Ireland on Thursday, and I get back on the 20th. So it could be a little bit of a gap before we get another Cruise Talk Weekly, but I do love doing this show.
Same here. I like we're in that little rhythm where we go off the rails a little bit at the end. Those who want to take the ride with us are more than welcome, but those who are just all about the cruising, yeah, they can, choose your own adventure,
Yeah. So no promises, but we'll see you before the month's over, I would think.
See you soon.
And it's a winning, never to lose. When we talk about vacation, though, it's always a cruise. It's Tony and Tommy with a TNT schmooze. Cruise Talk Weekly, and we lighten the fuse.